as well.
I had to start the video, the recording.
Okay, yes, it started, DP Stuart. We accept. Yes, good evening once again to another meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. And I must apologize for the late start, but it's good to have everyone here and that we are looking forward to a great meeting with our guest speaker, Professor Carolyn Cooper, who will share with us Beyond Black History Month, Changing African American Family. But to do the official welcome, I'll call on P. Jr. to do so, but I see LG on amongst us this evening, our Lieutenant Governor. So I'm going to ask LG Rose to bring greetings before we move on to the official, before we do the official welcome. LG Rose.
Thank you, President. Yes, I'm here. I'm here this evening. I'm so happy to join you for this meeting. And I'm truly looking forward to hearing the discussion. It is always good to be with Kingston Club. I feel right at home, and so it's good to be here with you this evening. And so I bring you greetings from your division. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, LG Rose. It's always good to have you as well. I'll call on P. Jr. to officially welcome those on our platform, visiting clubs and guests and prospects. Over to you, P. Jr.
Thank you, President Paul, and good night to you, to all the Kiwanians that are on tonight and guests and friends that are on. Tonight we have with us Professor Carolyn Cooper, who will share with us a very interesting topic. So I'm going to allow each club to bring greetings and to tell us how many are in their delegations, because in the interest of time, we want to move through quickly because we know it is going to be a very interesting meeting and we want to have all the time to deal with it. So we will just start by asking those clubs overseas to start bringing greetings. Those clubs that are overseas outside of Jamaica. Okay. If not, in the meantime, we'll go to Division 25. Division 25, those clubs in Division 25. 24. Those clubs in Division 24. Okay, good. Go ahead.
I am Secretary Teresa from the Kiwanis Club of Charlton, Alexandria. Currently, I am the only one at the moment, but others will join in later. Thanks for the invitation.
And thank you also for coming. Division 24. Clubs in Division 24. If not, I move to 23 East.
President Paul,
yes.
Members of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. This is DP Herman from Kiwanis Club of New Kingston. We thank you for inviting us. There are 3 of us at the moment, and we are hoping for others to join us. Looking forward to an excellent meeting.
And yeah, and thank you for coming as well. We will we sure will have a good meeting tonight. I'm sure we will. And thank you for coming. Division 23 East.
Sorry,
Yes, good evening.
Judah, I'm hearing like a radio in the background and I can't identify who it is. I'm not sure. But if somebody can,
Okay.
Is that it?
Okay, it might be. Let me just. You still hearing it? You still hearing it, DP? Okay, let's go. Division 23 East.
Yes, good evening, PE Junior.
Right.
PE down here from the Kiwanis Club of EKPR.
Yes.
We are currently 4 in number. I have joining me myself. We have PP Elric, DP Donald, and PP Trevor. We do
Okay.
anticipate more joining us in short order. We look forward to an exciting and interesting meeting.
That is what we promise you tonight. And thank you for coming as usual. 23 West.
Good evening, PE, President. This is President Emilio from the QS of Diverse Professional Sportmore Pines. We're 2 in number. So far, myself and Secretary Treasurer Wayne. And we're so happy to be here this evening, claiming African American family. And Professor Cooper will definitely give a really interesting presentation.
We all are sure looking forward to this presentation. And thank you very much for coming. 23 Central. Those in 23 Central.
Sorry. Good evening. I'm from 23 East. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm DP Sheena from the Kiwanis Club of Worthington, Kingston. We currently have 3 members on. We have Kiwanian Crystal, Kiwanian Leonard, and Kiwanian Dion. Thank you for having us.
And thank you for coming. 23 Central.
Good evening, PE Junior. I am co-chair Eurydice from the Kiwanis Club of 23 Central, sorry, online. At the moment, it's 2 of us online, myself and DP Desmond, who is also a member of your club.
Yes.
But I'm sure others will join, but in the interim, I'm very thankful for the invitation and I'm looking forward to a very informative and exciting meeting. Thank you for having us.
And very much thank you for coming as well.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
PE Junior, this is Kermit McGann, Kiwanis Club of Downtown Kingston, Division 23 East. I know my president is online, but for whatever reason, he did not come through. As far as I know, there are at least 3 of us on, and we expect some others to join. And we're looking forward to a super meeting. Have a good evening.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And thank you for coming. 23.
President-elect Junior, this is LGE Hugh. It's a pleasure for me to be with you at this very special meeting. We're looking forward to the presentation from your guest speaker. And I am a delegation of 1.
Yes, so far.
So far.
So far. Thank you.
Good evening, PE Junior. This is President Shakira from the Kiwanis Club of Young Professionals, St. Andrew. It is great to be here with you tonight. I am most definitely looking forward to this speaker. We have 2 members online and we are looking for more members to be joining you tonight.
Yes, and it is great to have you 2 as well. Thank you for coming. 23 Central. Central. If not, we will go to our SLPs.
A pleasant good evening, everyone. This is President Arena from the Dunoon Park Technical High School Key Club, and we are 7 in number. It is always a pleasure to be here, and we do give thanks for the invitation.
And we thank you for coming. Quite a large delegation tonight. I'm sure you'll enjoy the presentation. SLPs.
Hi, good evening.
Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm President Dunning from the UEMONA CKI. We're 3 numbers tonight, hoping that more persons will join. Thanks for the invitation.
And thank you for coming. SLPs.
Good evening, PE Junior. This is President Sidon Curtis from the Camperdown High School Key Club, and we are 9 in number. The key clubbers are out, and we really wish you guys a great meeting and hope that we gain knowledge.
Sure, I sure know that you'll gain a lot of knowledge tonight. And I thank you for coming in such large delegation. Thank you again. SLPs?
Good evening, PE Junior. This is President Xavier from UCC Circle K. We are 20 at the moment, expecting more members to join. We're looking forward to an informative meeting tonight. And thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. SLPs? Okay, what about those non-Kiwanians online? What about the non-Kiwanians that are online that would like to bring greetings? You can go ahead now. Others that are online that would like to bring greetings? Good, thank you very much. Thank you all very much for attending so far. And without further ado, I'll put you back to our President Paul. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much, PE Junior. Apologies for absence. I have one apology for lateness. Our Director Warren will be late. Secretary DLG Willie, did you receive any apologies?
Yes, Kiwanian Clovis Metcalf.
Okay, thank you very much, DLG Willie. At this time, we move to the recognition of birthdays and anniversaries, and I'll call on VP Newton to do the honors. VP Newton, over to you, sir.
Thank you, President Paul. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to get to it quickly because I really am not brave enough to be standing between the other 97 persons waiting to hear Professor Cooper. They might stampede and trample me. So for this week, we have Kiwanian Dennis Townsend, who celebrates his birthday on no other day than Valentine's Day, February 14th. So please remember that. For anniversary, we have DP Jeff Mesado and Jennifer, and they celebrate their anniversary on February 12th. As I said, I'm not going to stand between Professor Cooper and our anxious audience, so I'm just going to invite anyone else who is celebrating a birthday, anniversary, any special occasion. Through President Paul, I'm going to ask that you just let us know now so we can celebrate with you. Anyone? Well, President Paul, it's back to you. I, like everybody else, I'm really anxious to hear what Professor Cooper is going to be saying.
Yes, thank you very much, VP Newton. We'll have our Kiwanis education segment, and I'm calling on no other person to do so but our Secretary, DLG Willie.
Thank you, President Paul. For tonight's Kiwanis education, I'm just going to read a section from the book Kiwanis in Jamaica, 1964-2009, written by Professor Patrick Bryan. As it deals with the Kiwanis Club of Kingston and the growth of Kiwanis in Jamaica. Kiwanis in Jamaica was born in the context of a Jamaica determined to present itself as a harmonious, multi-ethnic community. Frank Milhilo, Charter President of Kiwanis Club of Kingston, reflecting his commitment to the Jamaicans' motto, out of many one people, insisted that his acceptance of leadership in the Kiwanis organization in Jamaica was conditional on the inclusion of Kiwanis of all ethnic groups in Jamaica. Also mirroring the belief of the contemporary Jamaican nationalism and volunteerism was Jasper Burnett, a charter member of the Kiwanis Club and a former member of the Kiwanis Club on North St. Andrew, who declared, "I recognize that volunteerism would be critical in the process of nation building. Analysis of Jamaican society at the time of independence showed that the society lacked social and cultural integration. There were those, such as the Jamaican anthropologist M.G. Smith, who considered Jamaican plural in culture. There are others, such as Edward Seaga, member of the Legislative Council in 1962, and later Prime Minister of Jamaica, who considered that there were two Jamaicans, one Afro-oriented, the other Euro-oriented. Norman Manley, Chief Minister, Premier, and leader of the PNP and founder of Jamaican Welfare in turn, referred to divisions in Jamaican society based on conflicting value systems. Another reality of which Frank Miledo is no doubt aware was that the Jamaican business sector was dominated by white and light-skinned minorities to the extent there was an equation between ethnicity and power, or the lack of it. Nation building assumed not only formalities of political independence, but socially and culturally integrated policy that promoted the concept of Jamaica as a racially harmonious state. At the time of his entry onto Jamaican stage, Kiwanis was strongly influenced by patriotism and nationalism, which still continues to exercise influence on Kiwanis' action. The Kiwanis Club of Kingston set the pace for the evolution and rapid development of Kiwanis in Jamaica, and to some extent the Caribbean region. The Kiwanis Club of Kingston organized clubs in Curacao, 1964, Aruba, 1964, and San Juan, Puerto Rico, 1965, in partnership with the Kiwanis Club of Nassau. Even before new ones were set up in Montego Bay and Ocho Rios in 1966. Later, they organized the Kiwanis Club of Downtown Kingston, 1969, Mandeville, 1969, St. Thomas, 1972, Spanish Town, 1974, New Kingston, 1989, Mona, 2003, and the Kiwanis Club of Kingstown in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 2004. The link with Puerto Rico lasted only for a year, since the Puerto Ricans preferred alignment to the United States of America. In reality, the Puerto Rican decision was not surprising. Puerto Rico's semi-independent state as a Commonwealth of the United States ensured that the country continued to operate strictly within the U.S. sphere of influence. President Paul, that's part one. I'm going to continue this part two next week, since we have a very interesting speaker following this. Thank you very much. Over to you, President Paul.
Yes, thank you very much, Kiwanis. Thank you very much, DLG Willie, for leading us in Kiwanis education. To do the introduction of our guest speaker, I'm going to ask Kiwanis Andre Palmer to do the honors.
President Paul,
yes.
Ms. Cooper, I know she had to log out and to log back in. I'm not seeing her back on yet. So if you could just, I was trying to call her a while ago, just to see if she's having an issue. So I don't know if you can just do something else in the meantime. But she's not, I'm not seeing her in the listing. So I know she had to log out to log back in. I'm trying to make contact.
Okay, thank you very much, DP Stewart. DLG Willie?
Yes, sir.
Yes, the second part of the Kiwanis education, is it, could it do the honors to proceed it? Will it take 2 minutes or?
If it's interesting enough. I'll just continue until we find somebody. Sorry, until we get confirmation that Professor Carolyn Cooper is on. I'll just continue then. In 1966, 2 years after its formation, the Kiwanis Club of Kingston organized a club in Montego Bay, the capital of St. James, Jamaica's most important urban zone after the capital of Kingston. Located in the northwest of the island, Montego Bay has been the tourist capital of Jamaica since the 1950s, the commercial and administrative hub of Western Jamaica, the center of several of Jamaica's major hotels and the site of the Donald Franks International Airport, one of 2 international airports in Jamaica. As expected from Montego Bay, Kiwanis is extended throughout the county of Cornwall, westward into Lucy, Hanover 1974, Anchovy 1978, Montego Bay, Freeport 1968, and east into Falmouth, up to Trunon and Negril, and the parish of Western in the southwest. The decision to organize clubs in Ocho Rios in 1966 and Mandeville in 1969 probably came about because they are both major townships outside of Kingston and St. Andrew that were experiencing economic boom based on the bauxite alumina industry in the case of Mandeville, and on tourism and bauxite in the case of Ocho Rios, which had become the hub of a holiday area stretching from St. Anne's Bay to Orocabessa. Alcan, Alcoa, Alport, Reynolds, and Kaiser at the time stimulated a bauxite boom in the quiet rural towns of Mandeville, Discovery Bay, Maypen, and Euroton. Mandeville's economy came hit to the rising and falling tides of bauxite and alumina. The urban boom was reflected in new housing estates, a new high school, Bel Air, catering for education of children of bauxite workers, an additional post office, the growth of vehicular traffic, and the concomitant congestion. Membership Kiwanis was drawn not only from businessmen, the medical profession, and insurance industry, but from employees of the bauxite companies, including Dr. Art Reed and Dr. Gilbert Allen. The bauxite companies assisted Kiwanis in various ways, including the provision of land for the construction of basic schools. Shall I continue? Is Professor Cooper on yet?
Still not seeing her, Willie, and her phone isn't answering me.
Maybe I'll just continue for the next 2 minutes.
I'm using every other option I have, like emails and everything.
Okay. Ocho Rios itself had a bauxite pier at the western end of the town, which also had facilities for bulk storage and shipping of sugar. The town and country planning order in 1964 envisions improvement of the coast road, which passed through the main shopping center, the creation of beaches by reclamation from the shallow waters of Ocho Rios, and the provision of a pier to receive passengers from visiting cruise ships and expansion of the existing housing area. Ocho Rios, which was little more than a hamlet before Abe Ipsap built towers and hotel in 1948, became a tourist center. Ocho Rios was seen by 1991 as choking on its own prosperity with over 200 restaurants and points of sale for food craft vendors, internet peddlers, tourist guides, thousands of cruise ship passengers, and dozens of nightclubs. Since each club assumes that one of its missions is to establish new clubs, a club in a potentially prosperous Ocho Rios was an excellent nucleus for the spread of additional organizations along the North Coast. The Kiwanis Club of Ocho Rios organized other clubs in St. Anne, including Garden Parish, Discovery Bay, Claremont, now defunct, Alexandra, Monique, and Seville, and went on to organize new clubs in the adjoining parish of St. Mary. In 1981, the Kiwanis Club of Ocho Rios rather ingeniously organized the Kiwanis Southward Floating Club on board the MS Southward, a ship which made regular cruises to Jamaica from Miami. The Kiwanis Club of Discovery Bay advancing into the interior, in turn established the Brownstown and Charlton Alexandria clubs.
Yes.
Any luck yet?
Well, DP Stewart is trying, but thank you very much, dear G. Willie. I want to make special welcome. I want to say special welcome to our immediate past governor for the Eastern Caribbean and Eastern Caribbean District from Delaware. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. Good to have you
Very happy to join you tonight.
Yes.
Around 26. Now I have been BG check.
Yes. Well, welcome back, professors.
Yes, I just got cut off. I don't know what happened.
Okay, but it's good to have you. But I'm going to ask our Q and Andre Palmer to do the introduction.
Okay.
Q and Andre Palmer, over to you, sir.
Great. Thank you, President Paul, and good evening, fellow Kiwanians. Good to have everybody on. This is a talk that people will pay or would pay a lot of money to hear. So we're really very happy to have the distinguished professor with us tonight. Professor Emerita Carolyn Cooper is a distinguished graduate of St. Hugh's High School and the University of the West Indies, Mona. On completion of her BA in English in 1971, see, we're dating you, Professor, but you look great, right? Miss Cooper was...
I'm all of 71 years of age, my dear. I'm not hiding my age like certain people because I know I don't look
amazing. You should be proud. So Ms. Cooper was awarded a Canadian International Development Agency Fellowship to do her Masters of Arts at the University of Toronto. She also received funding from the university to do her PhD. After teaching for 5 years at Atlantic Union College, a small private college in New England, she returned to the University of the West Indies in 1980. There, she taught courses on Caribbean, African American, and African literature, as well as popular culture. For over a decade, her course, Reggae Poetry, many of you would have heard of it, attracted students from across the faculties, in fact, from across the world, I dare say. In 1992, Professor Cooper conceived the Reggae Studies Unit and provided intellectual leadership for this far-reaching and very important enterprise for more than a decade since its institutionalization at Mona in 1994. Professor Cooper is the author of 2 influential books, Noises in the Blood, Orality, Gender, and The Vulgar Body of Jamaican Popular Culture, 1993, and Soundclash, Jamaican Dancehall Culture at Large, published in 2004. She also co-edited with Dr. Eleanor Wint, Bob Marley, The Man and His Music, in 2003. She is the editor of the award-winning reader, Global Reggae 2012. She is currently editing the Bob Marley Lectures, the proceedings of an engaging lecture series on Jamaican popular music, which she initiated in 1997 as coordinator of the Reggae Studies Unit. A well-known and sometimes controversial media personality in Jamaica, Professor Cooper is a public intellectual committed to widening debates on cultural politics beyond the walls of the university. She writes a weekly column for the Sunday Gleaner that she posts on her bilingual blog, Jamaican Woman Tongue. She has appeared in numerous documentaries on Caribbean culture produced by a wide range of local and international media houses such as Television Jamaica, Al Jazeera TV, National Public Radio in the USA, the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC, ARD TV in Germany, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and B World Connection in Guadeloupe. For her outstanding and truly remarkable work in the field of education, Professor Cooper was awarded the national honor, the Order of Distinction in the rank of Commander in 2013. It is truly an honor and a privilege to have Professor Cooper with us tonight, and we look forward to the conversation we're about to have. So Professor Cooper, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer, for that comprehensive introduction. I tell you, it is a pleasure for me to be here with you all this evening. Now, in his invitation to address you, Mr. Spencer made a couple of suggestions of topics. Quote, "It is Black History Month and also Reggae Month, and these would be good themes, but we would be happy if you spoke on any topic of your choice." That was in his email to me. He was quite unfazed when I immediately said, I don't believe in either Black History Month or Reggae Month. And that's what I'd like to talk about. My dissenting perspective is obviously covered under any topic of your choice. But some of you may be wondering why I agree to speak against the suggested topics. No, not to make mischief. I know I have an entirely undeserved reputation for being controversial. I'm really not a contentious person. Believe it or not, I don't set out to look for trouble, but I do enjoy challenging conversations in which conventional wisdom is questioned. So that's what motivated me to accept and then contest Mr. Stewart's invitation. First, Reggae Month. In February 2018, I wrote a Gleaner column with this headline, Reggae Month Makes Sense? In English, does Reggae Month make sense? Once a month, I write in the Jamaican language, and I give an English translation on my blog, Jamaica Woman Tongue. I'm happy to hear that Kiwanians outside Jamaica are on the call, and I have to big up my friend Dee Lewis. Welcome, Dee. It's so great to have you. Dee has hosted me so many times in her beautiful home in Barbados with her husband, Tony Lewis. And some of you outside Jamaica and not may not be competent in the Jamaican language, so I will give an English translation when I use Jamaican. In his invitation, Mr. Spencer hinted at a third topic when he wrote, quote, "I'm also a fan of your views on the Jamaican language," unquote. But that's not what I'll be focusing on this evening. So here's how I started to answer the question, Reggae Month make sense? When me see the Reggae Month calendar for 2018, my head starts spin. So much things chuck up in a one little month, and then this a clash left, right, and center. Me know say we love dancehall clash, but this a one big mix up and blender. In English, when I saw the Reggae Month calendar for 2018, my head started to spin. So many events jam-packed into just 1 month, and they're clashing left, right, and center. I know we love dancehall clashes, but this is one hell of a confrontation. I argued that reggae music born and grow here, after we own a culture where we get to the world. What make we go big up reggae for ongo one dege month? In English, reggae music originated here. It's our own culture that we're giving to the world. Why should we celebrate reggae for only a single month? As was to be expected, quite a few people posted irritated comments on Facebook. It's sweet, Miss O'Teal. In English, I was most pleased. Every month when I write in Jamaican, I get hostile emails from readers complaining about how hard it is to decode the written language. That column is frequently dismissed as gibberish, foolishness, can't understand it, don't make any sense. Perhaps the people who responded to the Reggae Month column are all unusually bright. They had absolutely no problem understanding what I had written, and they were quite clear about disagreeing with me. But none of them successfully countered my fundamental argument that reggae and all other forms of Jamaican popular music should be on the national calendar every single month. As for Black History Month, it's because I believe in the importance of Black history that I reject the gimmick of a Black History Month in a country like Jamaica. It's nothing but falla fashion, like Valentine's Day and Halloween. We should not need a Black History Month in Jamaica. Like reggae, Black history should be fundamental to our collective identity as a Jamaican nation. Black History Month originated in the US and made perfectly good sense there. It began first as Negro History Week. It was launched by Carter Woodson, an African-American scholar and cultural activist, and the second week of February was chosen to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Woodson recognized that every week in America is about white history. So the special focus on Black history was conceived as a corrective, putting Black people in the national picture. In its time, it was a great idea. Woodson would be appalled to know how Black history is under attack in the US now. Critical race theory has become a contentious term. The Bloomberg Equality website defines the concept in this way, quote, critical race theory, or CRT, proposes that any analysis of American society must take into account its history of racism and how race has shaped attitudes and institutions. It often overlaps with discussions of systemic racism, the ways policies, procedures, and institutions work to perpetuate racial inequity. Let me just repeat that. It often overlaps with discussions of systemic racism, the ways policies, procedures, and institutions work to perpetuate racial inequity. It is racism, unquote. It is racism, plain and simple, that makes some Americans completely unwilling to understand their history of racism and its far-reaching consequences. Carter Woodson is the author of a brilliant book, The Miseducation of the Negro. in which he elaborates his vision of the kind of education that Blacks in America ought to have, education relevant to survival in the real world. So in the US, where Blacks are a numerical minority, it may look like a good thing to have a month in which Black history is celebrated. Not just American history, but the history of African peoples all over the globe. Academics, poets, musicians, cultural workers get an opportunity to earn money during Black History Month. Many of our own Jamaican artists are highly sought professionals for the US celebrations. Surprisingly, some African Americans object to the widening of Black History Month to include other Black people in the US. For example, the daughter of friends of mine, she's African American, her mother is Jamaican, her father is African American, and this is what she posted recently on Facebook. Quote, "I'm going to say this, and I really don't care that it will upset some people. Black History Month is a celebration of Black American history. Other countries have their own celebrations of Black history. Black History Month is not a time to celebrate Blacks of the diaspora. It's to celebrate the actions and accomplishments of Black Americans. We can celebrate the diaspora any other month, not during Black American History Month. Don't take that from us. Be mad if you want to. I'm here for it," unquote. Now that's a remarkable testimony, because what this young woman, and she's not all that young, she's in her 40s, but she's asserting is the need to claim space as African Americans for her own history. But what I'm proposing this evening is that we need to consider what it means to claim family across ethnic lines. Because although Black people are joined by race, we're divided by ethnicity. And this is something that we need to disentangle as we talk about the politics of claiming identity across ethnic lines. But even in the US, there are problems with limiting the focus on Black history to 1 month, and the shortest month of the year at that. Black History Month cannot be seen as an adequate substitute for what is really needed, the integration of Black people's history into the official histories of the societies in which we find ourselves. Indeed, Black history is not just for Black people. Black history is world history. It is racism that motivates the desire to segregate so-called inferior people from their so-called superiors. Racism makes some people want to erase other people's history. The history of Black people must be integrated into the school curriculum, and this is a big war now that is being fought out in America. Once upon a time, a very humorous and revealing story was told about a group of white people who were fed up with African Americans, so they joined together and wished themselves away. They passed through a deep, dark tunnel and emerged in a sort of a twilight zone where there is an America without Black people. At first, these white people breathed a sigh of relief. At last, they said, no more crime, drugs, violence, and welfare. All of the Blacks have gone. Then suddenly, reality set in. In the new America, not America at all, in the new America, there's only a barren land. There are very few crops that have flourished because the nation was built on a slave-supported system. There are no cities with tall skyscrapers because Alexander Mills, a Black man, invented the elevator, and without it, it's quite taxing to reach up to those high floors. There are few, if any, cars because Richard Spikes, a Black man, invented the automatic gear shift. Joseph Gamble, also Black, invented the supercharged system for internal combustion engines. And Garrett A. Morgan, a Black man, invented traffic signals. Furthermore, one could not use a rapid transit system because its procurer was the electric trolley, which was invented by another Black man, Albert R. Robinson. Even if there were streets on which cars and a rapid transit system could operate, they were cluttered with paper because an African-American, Charles Brooks, invented the street sweeper. There were few, if any, newspapers, magazines, and books because John Love invented the pencil sharpener, William Purvis invented the fountain pen, Lee Barrage invented the typewriting machine, and W.A. Love invented the advanced printing press. They all were, you guessed it, Black. And even if Americans could write their letters, articles, and books, they could not have sent them by mail, because William Barry invented the postmarking and cancelling machine, William Purvis invented the hand stamp, and Philip Downing invented the letter drop. The lawns were brown and wilted because Joseph Smith invented the lawn sprinkler and John Burr the lawnmower. The homes were poorly ventilated and poorly heated. You see, Frederick Jones invented the air conditioner and Alice Parker the heating furnace. The homes were also dim. Louis Latimer invented the electric lamp. Michael Harvey invented the lantern, and Granville T. Woods invented the automatic cutoff switch. The homes were also filthy because Thomas W. Stewart invented the mop and Lloyd P. Ray the dustpan. Their children met them at the door, barefooted, shabby, motley, and unkempt, but what could one expect? Johnny Matzelinger invented the shoe lasting machine. Walter Salmons invented the comb. Sarah Boone invented the ironing board, and George T. Salmon invented the clothes dryer. Finally, they were resigned to at least have dinner amidst all of this turmoil. But here again, the food had spoiled because another Black man, John Standard, invented the refrigerator. Now, isn't that something? What would the US of A be like without the contributions of African Americans? Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "By the time we leave for work, Americans have depended on the inventions from the minds of Blacks." Black history includes more than just slavery. Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and W.B. Du Bois. Now, I got that story by email. I haven't checked all the facts, but I know that truth is stranger than fiction. The African-American contribution to world culture is no joke. Now, there was a time when many Black people from the Caribbean living in the US thought they were superior to Black Americans. Some still do, and that's because we don't fully understand our history. Conveniently forgetting our shared history of enslavement, Caribbean migrants could not identify with the struggles of Black Americans to gain full citizenship in the country of their birth. The prejudice went something like this. Them don't even have to beg for a visa to come here. Them don't have no ambition. Why them don't make better use of them opportunity? In English, they don't even have to beg for a visa to come here. They don't have any ambition. Why don't they make better use of their opportunities? But in a fundamentally racist society, ambition is not always enough. In fact, you could be lynched for being too ambitious. An opportunity can be a scarce commodity, as Buju Banton so perceptively reminds us. The misunderstanding between African Americans and Caribbean people went both ways. Our own Claude McKay wrote a brilliant novel, Home to Harlem, which examines how Blacks from the US and the Caribbean viewed each other. Ray, a Haitian intellectual, considers himself, quote, superior to 10 millions of suppressed Yankee coons. No, he was just one of them, and he hated them for being one of them, unquote. Now, Jake, one of the despised Black Yankees, has his own prejudices. He, quote, was very American in spirit and shared a little of that comfortable Yankee contempt for poor foreigners. Africa was jungle, and Africans bush niggers, cannibals, and West Indians were monkey chasers, unquote. McKay's novel was published in 1928. 88 years later, on September 29, 2016, I was at the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture for the dedication ceremony. Unlike Ray, I certainly did not feel superior, just proud of what Black people in the US have accomplished. The lead designer for the magnificent building, and if you haven't seen it, I invite you to go on the web, just Google it. I didn't want to do any PowerPoint because what I found is whenever there's any sharing of, screen sharing, I get knocked off of Zoom. I have not figured out why, but anyhow, it's easy to go and find pictures of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. The lead designer for the magnificent building is David Ajayi, who was born in Tanzania. He's certainly not Jake's mythical bush nigger and cannibal. The son of a Ghanaian diplomat, Ajayi was educated to be a citizen of the world. He studied architecture in England and in 1993 won the Royal Institute of British Architects Bronze Medal. Now, this global architecture competition is not the Olympics. A bronze medal doesn't mean third place. Architecture degree programs are structured in at least two parts, undergraduate part 1 and postgraduate part 2. The bronze medal is awarded for the best design project at part 2, and the bronze medal is awarded for the best design project at part 1 and the silver for part 2. In an inspiring interview published in the New York Times on September 21, 2016, Ajayi observes that the slave trade was not just about picking cotton, quote, to really talk about architecture and African-American history, let's go back and look at Georgia and Charleston, all these places through a different lens. There, the history is right in front of you. This incredible tradition of metal smithing by freed slaves. There were no molds. They learned all this by hand. It is part of the history of American architecture, unquote. Ajayi honors this expertise using bronze-colored metal lattice to wrap the building. My sister Donette was the museum's first individual donor, so she was invited to the opening and I was her guest. She's listed in the program as one of the patrons who has contributed between $5,000 and $24,999. In December 2003, President George W. Bush signed the bill authorizing the establishment of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. That same month, Donette sent her first check for the museum to the Smithsonian. There was no site, no architect, no director, no museum, but there was legislation. It was time for change. The BBC World Service interviewed Donette for a documentary on the museum that was aired the day it opened. The title chosen for the program was A Home for Black History. Home is not just the literal place. It's also the sense of security the work evokes. Donette is a transactional attorney and a visual artist working in affordable housing financing with the DC Department of Housing and Community Development. She understands the challenges that many Black Americans face as they try to hold on to their homes. Gentrification is pushing many of them out. One family's opportunity is another's catastrophe. When we finally got into the museum, I knew we were home. The exhibits tell a grand narrative of survival that Africans across the diaspora know intimately. African-American history and culture is not just about the US. It's a shared story. It's a family story. Marcus Garvey is in the museum, and so is Bob Marley. Garvey went to New York in 1916, and his Universal Negro Improvement Association attracted hundreds of thousands of supporters. His visionary newspaper, The Negro World, gave Africans on the continent and in the diaspora a new understanding of their common identity and destiny. Garvey's Black Star line was designed to support trade between Africa and the Americas. His vision was much too revolutionary. He had to be stopped, so he was arrested for mail fraud. I can't believe that the petition to clear Garvey's name that was launched a few years ago had to be aborted because it did not require the 100,000 signatures. In Jamaica alone, we should have been able to get that many. Now, there are some of us who feel that Garvey's name doesn't need to be cleared because he wasn't really a criminal. But I know this is a controversial issue, but those of us who think he should be cleared, we need to mobilize support. And those of us who feel Garvey's way above them and them petition, we need to still affirm the power of Garvey's vision and his message that is completely relevant today. One of the most powerful exhibits in the museum is Emmett Till's casket. In 1955, Till, a 14-year-old boy, was lynched in Mississippi for allegedly flirting with a white woman. Black lives must matter in 1955 and today. And the National Museum of African American History and Culture will long tell our collective story of tragedy and triumph. As Africans in America, across the diaspora, Africans on the continent, Africans in the Caribbean, we need to claim our family connections. We need to recognize that our history is vital. We cannot reduce the complex history of African peoples across the globe to a single month. We need to celebrate African culture every single day of the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Cooper. Can you open your mics and give her a round of applause? Yes, very, very candid and interesting perspective shared by Professor Cooper. I'm going to ask, I'm going to take, in the interest of time, 3 questions or comments from our participants before I move the vote of thanks. I see Q1 and Andrew Rogers.
Good evening, Kiwanians and visitors. Professor Cooper, thank you for this very interesting perspectives to take. It was well received and I appreciate it. I have observed since the pandemic has started and we've all had to transition online, and I've been on a platform such as Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, there has been an increase in discussion about diaspora relations, about, you know, Africans understanding African Americans and African Americans understanding Caribbean people. And so they've dubbed it diaspora wars. And it has been very interesting to listen to these discussions. And one of the things I've picked up is that there's a lack of understanding of history and also a lack of understanding that we have of each other and a lack of empathy. So moving forward, as more persons begin to discuss these things, because one of the Twitter Spaces was entitled, "Does Immigration Benefit African Americans?" And African Americans, their argument was it wasn't beneficial to them because the Africans and Caribbean immigrants do not come to America and support their causes. They actually thwart their efforts. So in this context and moving forward, how do you envision the diaspora coalescing around a common cause and working together in this, you know, diaspora war climate? I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you again for the presentation.
Yes, thanks for the question. Well, you see, it has to be a mutual recognition of our similarities. The focus has to be African Americans have to recognize what they have in common with Caribbean people and Africans from the continent. And we also need to recognize the particularity of their history. You see, that young woman, not so young woman in her 40s who is saying, we don't want anybody else to take part in Black History Month, it's just for us. She's speaking to a kind of, it's a sense of disadvantage that she feels, that here we are disadvantaged already in America, and then these other Black people are coming in and muscling in on our celebration. So the future has to be for us to talk to each other. I can't see any other way around it. We have to have a conversation. It is true that many Black, Caribbean people go to America, as I said in the talk, have contempt for these people. They're here and they're lazy and they're this and they're that. And, there are people who migrate and do jobs that they wouldn't do in Jamaica because they can see how hustling will help them to get ahead, and they hustle and they succeed, and then they get comfortable and say, why couldn't you, born in America, hustle in the same way? I think we have to talk to each other to try to understand the particularities of our histories. It's not so easy to jump around and to move through American society if you have been burdened with a weight of history that tells you that you cannot succeed. It's difficult. And the miracle is that so many people have succeeded.
Thank you very much, Professor Cooper. I see Miss Henry's, and Miss Henry, over to you. Then I'll move on to Q&A. You already see.
Good afternoon. Well, it's afternoon I am, but good evening. Thank you so much, Professor, for your talk. I am now in the US, now in Oregon, and
yes.
This is my third university that I've been at. And I left Jamaica having done 2 degrees at the University of the West Indies. And I felt shame when I came up not recognizing, one, how Black I was. I think at times being within our culture, we don't understand, or, well, I know I didn't understand and appreciate my Blackness because it was never the fulcrum of who I was. I was who I was, maybe more of a young girl, but not seen as a Black woman until I went into spaces when I was the only Black person. And so I've always had to carry that. But then when I met with my other sisters and brothers on campuses that were of my color, I have felt that which you have described. One, there's somewhat of a division between us, and my supervisor and I had a discussion last week. And I said to him, I think I have to go back to the point where I do something more in Caribbean studies. So I'm doing a PhD in spiritual care and counseling, looking at personalities and cultures, and we are looking at African American, and everything is African American based in the US. And I constantly have to defend to say African American is more than the US. Mm-hmm. But then there's this division. Whenever I state in my classes, it seems as if I'm trying to be controversial. They say, well, that's Caribbean, and you're from the Caribbean. And I'm like, but if you're going to say African American, this is all the Americas. And yes, from Africa. So if we're going to put 2 things together, so my question to you is, how do I navigate those spaces? Because my supervisor for my doctoral program, she's an African American that is born in the US. And I think sometimes he cannot understand me much because he thinks I'm defensive with where I'm coming from. I'm like, I'm coming from that perspective because I'm from Jamaica and I'm always going to carry that. And when we speak of African American culture, I want it to be inclusive. So that's my question. How do I tactfully navigate that space while contributing to the field, not making it seem as if I'm combative, but being able to contribute, but also being able to be understood?
All right, you must know this Jamaican proverb. When you're head in a lion mouth, you have to take your head out, take out your head carefully. Let me tell you, you are in a situation where, as a minority opinion, you are now being, you're testing the normative view of how the racial dynamics and the ethnic dynamics must work. And so you just have to be cautious, but at the same time insistent on making your point, because the Americas is bigger than the United States. And African America includes all of us in this hemisphere. But you have to be sensitive to the fact that for many African Americans, they want to claim a particular space in order to defend the integrity of their vision of who they are. And so they see us coming from outside as threats. You know, there are Africans in America who specifically call themselves Africans in America. They don't want to be called African American because they want to distinguish themselves from African Americans. So they're Africans in America. So, you know, the conversation is needed so we can see that all of us are in the same struggle. Is not we versus them, because when it comes right down to it, we are all victims of racism. We have a collective, we have a shared enemy. And if we don't work together, we're going to be victims of the divide and rule syndrome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I will have Kiwana Eurydice with the last question. Kiwana Eurydice.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. Good evening, Dr. Cooper. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have found, I live in the United States, and I have found that it's easier or better to partner with the African Americans because you learn so much. You need them to navigate, to help you to understand what it is that you see or what is it that you are, will help you in a certain space. So I do not necessarily have a question per se, more than a comment. That in my experience here, I have found that having an African-American friend, or if I get into a place, in an office, in an environment, I'm new to that area, having an African-American greet me, be there with me, for me, help me navigate the space. They help me know what it is I will need there. It is always my best experience. So I've heard the comment that they have no use, all the negative things that is said about African Americans, but I've always, as much as I can, try to correct that, to say, no, you need them to help you to know where you are and what it is you need in that space and in that time, and how can you go forward from that place. So that's been my experience.
Yes, and African Americans have consistently used strategies, same Anansi, strategies like us, they use cunning to go through. One of my favorite stories comes from a so-called slave narrative. I prefer to call them freedom narratives. And this enslaved man and his master, so-called, are walking, and the so-called slave said, "Massa, you look just like one lion." And the master says, "Lion? Where have you seen a lion?" And he said, "I see one lion," when he's speaking African American, but I'm going to make him speak Jamaican. "Me see one lion down at the bottom of the field, master." And the master said, "Oh, you're so foolish. That's not a lion. That's a jackass." And he said, "Master, you look just like him." All right. So that's something is that honest stupid, he doesn't know the difference between a lion and a jackass, but he's mocking the master under the guise of being ignorant. As I say, we play a fool for catch wise. And so sometimes when we see African Americans not acting in ways that we would consider appropriate, we don't know what kind of subterfuge they have to be using to get through, because sometimes you can't even show how bright you are, because if you're too bright, people try to hold you down, you know, keep you back. And you're very sensible. You have realized that as a Caribbean person coming in, you need to talk to the people on the ground who know how the white people them stay, you know, and can help you negotiate the system. But if you come in with this arrogant attitude that you are superior, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble, because you're not going to know the codes, the appropriate codes by which you will survive. It's true. Sometimes when we don't know the codes, we just go through and do all kind of things that if we didn't know the codes, we wouldn't do. But at the same time, we have to respect the people who are on the ground, who know they've had the history Look at Black Wall Street. Look how Black Wall Street was just destroyed out of bad mind and grudgefulness. You know,
I know.
It's just terrible. So we have to join forces to recognize our shared culture, our shared history, and the way in which we need to come up with strategies to mobilize, to move us forward together en masse. This is what Marcus Garvey was about. Marcus Garvey was mobilizing African Americans as a Caribbean person, saying we have to take control of our lives, we have to control our destiny.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Yes, to do the official vote of thanks, I'm going to call on DP Stewart to do the honors, please. DP Stewart.
Okay, thank you, President Paul. Just making sure, you hear me?
Yes, very clear, yes.
Okay. Well, Dr. Cooper, it is indeed a pleasure, a real pleasure for me to have you here this evening. I must go back a little bit to the first time I heard you speak. I don't know if you would remember the occasion, but it was quite a few years ago. They were having, I think it was a kind of a reggae symposium or something like that at a conference center. And you were one of the featured speakers. And when you came on and you presented, I mean, the place was just rocking. And I always remember that. And I always had it that I would love to have you address our club, because I do remember that occasion. I really liked the directions in which you took your talk. I want to mention something. I remember I did study in the States for about 2 years. And I remember going there, that same thing you spoke about Jamaicans feeling superior. I made a conscious effort to make sure that I never exhibited that. Because I always said to myself, how different would I be from what we think they are if I had been born in America and had to go through what they went through? So I've always had that. Although I must admit that the only person who ever said anything to me of a, offensive nature was a Black man who I didn't know on the subway, or rather, who said to me, I must go back on the boat. I don't know how he could look at me and know whether I came over the boat, but I guess we look different. You just touched a little bit in your response a while ago about Black Wall Street, and that's something I was gonna just add a little bit. In that, if anybody uses Wikipedia, you will see dozens of towns, it's not just Black Wall Street, that were burned to the ground because of the same grudgefulness of the Southern whites. It wasn't just in the South, actually. Some northern cities suffered the same thing. And what struck me is, look at the amount of generational wealth that was lost because Blacks had to run for their lives and leave those places. And we would be looking at Black people a lot differently now if they had been able to carry that forward. So that is one other thing that I just wanted to just mention in response to what you said. And the last thing about Marcus Garvey, I just touch on that, is that some of the persons who oppose the idea of the pardon, at least my view, I admit that I share that view, is that in the US, a presidential pardon admits guilt. You can only get a pardon. Accepting a pardon implies you are guilty, but we are pardoning you. And I think that is probably one of the reasons why some persons, don't support it. But anyway, that is for another time. I really am happy, and I'm the audience was really so attentive, and I really appreciate it. And I just want to say, there will be no certificate tonight. I'm going to tell our audience that they are accustomed to see me put up a certificate at this time when the vote of thanks is being done. But, we had a little conversation, and we know we're going to have something different, because I really wanted to do something different. Because you did say that you have had so many of them, you don't have any more space to hang them. So we're gonna present you with an orchid. We're gonna present you with an orchid, and we'll do it a little bit after, maybe just after Valentine's Day to avoid that rush, and it will be sent to you. And afterwards, I'll clarify exactly what the venue or the location will be. But once again, thank you very much, Dr. Cooper. We really love having you, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm so forthright, but you know, these certificates really and truly is a tradition that you all have, which I think you should revisit, because I can't be the only one who have all for them certificate that have no use.
That's okay. Back to you, President Paul.
Thank you very much, DP Stewart, and Professor Cooper. Thank you so very much for sharing your perspective with us.
Pleasure.
Yes. At this time, we'll move to our Sergeant at Arms, and I'll call on DP Earl Spencer.
Greetings to Dr. Cooper too, because I met her many years ago in a different forum when I went up to the hills where you were, man. Are you still up there? I told me somewhere up there. Anyway, don't tell them.
No mind. Wrong hill.
Yeah, I called the wrong hill. But
much
anyway.
Much lower down.
Oh, much lower down. Okay. Yeah, but you remember. Yes. After such serious talk, my job is really supposed to put some light, bring some levity. But, you know, I took what you said. So we have heard some of it before, but the way you put it was really bringing it back into focus and so on. Anyway, that's not my job. I'm supposed to give a joke. The person I wanted to find tonight, he didn't come last week, and he still hasn't come because I didn't see him in the thing, so I have to bypass that one. So in the interest of time, I'll just give one. This boy, he's about 9 years old, heard the door bell, and he went and opened the door. Is your mom or dad home? A farmer was there, and he asked the boy. No, they went into town, the boy replied. Well, how about your brother Howard? The farmer asked. No, he went with mom and dad, the boy said. The farmer stood there for a minute, shifting from one foot to another and mumbling when the boy says, I know where the tools are if you need to borrow one, or I could give my dad a message for you. Well, the farmer said uncomfortably, I wanted to talk to your dad about your brother Howard getting my daughter pregnant. The boy thought for a moment, then said, You'll have to talk to my dad about that. I know he charges $500 for the bulls and $150 for the pigs, but I have no idea how he charges for Howard. Well, there was another little one, and I'm only going to give you the other one because I won't be here next week.
Excuse me, what was the last word? I don't know how much you charge for what?
For Howard. He doesn't know how much he charges for Howard. That's Howard who he wanted to see was getting his daughter pregnant.
That sounds like a very fishy joke, a very sexy sounding joke.
Well, I was hoping you heard all of it, and it would have just passed. Anyway, you know, we always have a village idiot somewhere around, and there was this village idiot, Johnny, decided he was going to apply for a police job. The police, knowing that Johnny come up with these schemes on a regular basis, decided this time to accommodate him with an interview. Police said, this is the interview. Police, which 2 days of the week begins with the letter T? Johnny, today and tomorrow. All right, we'll give you that. What is 1 and 1? Johnny, 11. All right, I'll give you that one too. Who killed Jesus Christ? Me don't know. All right, when you find out, you come back and let us know. On his way out of the police station, some friends saw Johnny and decided to tease him by asking him, how did the interview go? Johnny replied, me get the work, man. First day on the job, and them give me a murder case to solve. All right, that's it.
Yes. Thank you very much, DP Earl. Thank you, yes. We'll now have our notices and announcements, and I also invite participants to share the announcement in the chat in interest of time. But I'll move over to Secretary DLG Willie with our club announcements.
Thank you, President Paul. In terms of notices, just a reminder that the second quarter divisional council meeting will be held on March the 20th, am I right?
March 26th, DLG.
26th, sorry, couldn't read my writing. And the election of Lieutenant Governor and Lieutenant Governor-elect for 2022 to 23 will be held on the same day. Reminder that the registration for district convention is now open. That is going to be held in Fredericton in Nova Scotia from August 20 to the 22nd. In respect to activities, on Saturday, Michael Circle K have invited us to the signature project. They'll be sending out more details and I will send it out in the morning. So far, Interclub, I have 3 invitations. We have Kiwanis Club of Young Professionals, St. Andrew, their Valentine's Charity Auction fundraiser. That is tomorrow night at 6:30. Our own, one of our own Kiwanians, Dr. Martina Dwyer, I understand, is one of the attractions. Tomorrow evening, we also have the Kiwanis Club of South St. Andrew. Meeting starts 6:30. They have the Valentine's auction as well. And on Thursday night, we Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew have invited us to their meeting. Their meeting starts at 6:30. Details and the link to these meetings will be put in the group tomorrow morning as a reminder. Thank you very much, President Paul.
Yes, thank you very much, Secretary DLG Willie. We'll now move to the thought for the week, and I'll ask DP Stewart to do the honors. DP Stewart, over to you.
Thank you, President Paul. Okay, I have 2 as usual. This one says, a state can be no better than the citizens of which it is composed. Our labor now is not to mold the states, but to mold the citizens. And that came from Voltaire. And then this one, which is supposed to have originated or it is described as having come from Mongolian wisdom. It says, quite simply, even foul water will put out a fire. And those are my 2 thoughts for the week, President Paul.
Yes, thank you very much, DP Stewart. Well, it was a great meeting, everyone, on this platform. And I'm going to ask you to raise a toast to Kiwanis International and to Jamaica Land We Love. This meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston is now terminated at 8:31 p.m.
And Ms. Cooper, I don't know if you're on a tight timeline.
Yeah, no, no.
Okay, we usually play a little music after the meeting. So if you want to hang around, you know.
All right, thank you.
That's up to you. Okay.
And thanks for having me. I enjoyed myself.
It was our pleasure, Professor Cooper.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked out.
Yes. Okay, yes, it certainly did.
Good meeting, President Paul and
recording. 1 second.
Kingston. Good to have been here.
Yes, thank you very much, President Dwayne, and to members of your club for always interclubbing with Kingston Club.
Absolutely our pleasure.